Can you truly trust the story you hear every day? What if every news headline, every political speech, every sales pitch you think you understand, is carefully framed to control your mind? If you've been watching this series, you know manipulators aren't just going after your emotions or beliefs directly, they're controlling the very story you accept as reality. But the real secret is just how invisibly, systematically they do it. It started with a single headline: protests turn violent after government speech. But what if I told you that behind this headline was an entire engineered narrative designed to shift public opinion drastically? In a recent political crisis, media outlets framed peaceful demonstrations as dangerous riots, selecting only violent incidents to define the story. This narrative framing shifted public sympathy away from protesters to government supporters, suppressing legitimate grievances and enabling oppressive policies. Narrative framing like this isn't an accident. It's a deliberate weapon. Manipulators distort facts by highlighting some events and ignoring others, sequencing information to shape perceptions before the public can critically respond. This tactic creates an invisible prison where your mind is forced to accept a twisted version of reality, shaping your fears, hopes, and decisions from behind the scenes. And here's the most chilling part. These stories rarely just happen naturally. They're crafted, rehearsed, and coordinated, unfolding like a carefully directed play, and you're the unwilling audience. What makes narrative framing so terrifying is its invisibility. It's all around us, embedded deep in news media, advertising campaigns, social media trends, and even daily conversations. But because you don't see the strings, you believe you're freely choosing what to think and feel. For instance, a clothing ad might not just sell a shirt but frame a lifestyle, a story of status and desirability. The clothes become symbols in a larger narrative that manipulates your self-image and emotional desires. Politicians shape speeches to evoke fear or hope, carefully ordering facts and emphasizing certain phrases to predispose audiences toward specific feelings. Even relationships aren't immune. Consider how someone might tell you a story about a friend or partner, carefully omitting certain details or highlighting others, to manipulate your emotions and actions. Every narrative you encounter subtly shapes your worldview in ways you never signed up for. These invisible chains bind you, eroding your autonomy without your awareness. So, how exactly do manipulators craft these powerful narratives? It starts with 4 core framing tactics. First is selection. They choose which facts to present and which to hide, controlling what you see and don't see. Next is omission, leaving out information that might provide clarity or balance. Third, ordering. The sequence in which facts or events are presented, because the first and last impressions wield huge psychological power. Lastly, emotional framing. Wrapping the narrative in stories or images that provoke specific feelings like fear, pride, or outrage. These tactics can be combined seamlessly, creating an almost hypnotic effect that tricks your brain into accepting their constructed reality. Take a famous sales tactic. A company might highlight a single glowing review first, bury any criticism at the end, and end with an emotional testimonial that tugs at your heartstrings, all carefully framed to bypass your skepticism and push you toward buying. Understanding this toolkit is the first step to regaining control over your perception and decisions. But here's where it gets disturbing. Narrative framing doesn't just distort individual perception, it fractures entire societies. By controlling the stories people tell themselves and others, manipulators drive wedges between groups, fueling polarization and conflict. Think about recent global events. You've likely witnessed how opposing sides consume entirely different versions of reality, each framed by separate narratives that demonize the other. This manufactured division cripples dialogue, breeds hatred, and hands power to those orchestrating the narratives. Manipulative framing can escalate conflicts quietly, turning minor disagreements into major battles underpinned by conflicting emotionally loaded stories. This divide-and-conquer strategy makes populations easier to control and distracts from underlying abuses of power. The most dangerous part? Most people don't realize their beliefs are shaped by hidden framing tactics. They think they're simply defending the truth. But what if the truth you defend is no more than a story designed to control you? It's time to expose the puppet master behind the scenes. Manipulators don't work alone. They coordinate framing across multiple platforms and social contexts. Media conglomerates align with political interests, marketers synchronize campaigns with cultural narratives, and social influencers echo spun stories in everyday conversations. This multi-layered framing weaves a dense web that's difficult to untangle. The puppet master exploits your cognitive biases like confirmation bias and emotional reasoning to ensure you accept their frames unquestioningly. Social engineering at this scale isn't just about spinning narratives for persuasion. It's a systematic architecture of control designed to erode your autonomy and shape your identity. Understanding this network reveals the true scale and sophistication of narrative framing manipulation. The question isn't if you're being controlled, it's how much and what you're willing to do about it. Now here's what nobody tells you. The first step to resisting narrative framing manipulation is awareness. Recognizing when you're receiving a framed story, not an unfiltered truth. Start by asking critical questions. Who benefits from this narrative? What facts might be missing? Look for patterns of selection, omission, and emotional triggers. Second, expand your sources. Don't rely on a single news outlet or perspective. Cross-check facts and seek alternative viewpoints to reveal inconsistencies. Third, practice narrative reframing. Consciously challenge the imposed story by considering different contexts and motivations behind the information. Finally, train your emotional awareness. Manipulative framing often exploits fear, anger, or pride to cloud judgment. Learning to identify your emotional reactions as signals, not commands, empowers you to regain control over how stories affect your mind and actions. These steps aren't a one-time fix, but a continuous defense strategy crucial for safeguarding your autonomy in a world built on framed realities. Now, not just stories, but your very perception of reality. The next logical step is diving deeper into the tactics that disrupt your sense of identity and trust at an even more invisible control over your mind. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next unveiling in this series. The truth is more complex and more dangerous than you think.